Continuing from the previous episode 682. Chapter 1611. Plan. How hateful, they had still managed to escape. Lei Ying and the others clenched their teeth with great dissatisfaction as they looked at the place where the black hole had disappeared. It was unexpected that even the three great clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance were actually unable to retain the Hun clan. The strength that the Hun clan had displayed had far exceeded what we knew about them in the past. Yan Jin's expression was grave. From a certain point of view, the current Hun clan is no longer something that any single faction could fight against alone. Even the GU clan was unable to do so. It was precisely because of this that the danger he felt in his heart had increased. If the three clans had not cooperated, it was likely that they would be finished off by the Hun clan one at a time. Their fate would likely be no different for the Yao, Ling and Shi clan. The Hun clan has hidden too deeply during these years. Gu Yuan, whose hair was in a mess, had a face that was also unusually grave. They always thought that even if the GU clan was unable to defeat the Hun clan with its strength, the GU clan should at least be equivalent to the Hun clan in strength. However, the cruel reality today had told them that the GU clan was really no match for the Hun clan. Han Tiandi is right. When the Shao clan was defeated back then, there was no faction on this continent who could fight with them. Unfortunately, this truth was something that we are only aware of it today. Gu Yuan sighed RD. He also felt some regret in his heart. If the Shao clan was still present, the Hun clan would likely not dare to start this war regardless of how bold it was. Lei Ying and the others laughed bitterly after hearing these words. It was a little too late to speak about this now. What should we do now? Xiao Yan was momentarily quiet before he replied. Everyone's eyes were thrown towards Gu Yuan after they heard this. The latter mused for a moment upon seeing this. Finally, he said, the Hun clan has already obtained all of the two Shi ancient god jade. After they recuperate, it is likely that they are going to put the ancient jades together and learn of the location of the two Shi ancient god mansion. The only thing that we can do now is to carefully observe the Hun clan. If any of their experts moved, we will quietly follow them until the location of the two Shi ancient god mansion. If it's spying on them, I'm afraid that the Hun clan would slip away and escape from us. By the time we discover it, it is likely that they have already entered the ancient god mansion. Lei Ying frowned and said, this was something that the Hun clan specializes in. They had not sensed anything wrong when the Hun clan had quietly destroyed the Ling, Shi and Yao clans. This time around, I will personally observe them. Gu Yuan spoke in a deep voice. He understood the importance of this matter. If the Hun clan managed to successfully open the mansion and obtain the secret to advance into the Do D class, it was likely that they would not have the opportunity to turn things around. In the eyes of a genuine Do D, the so-called Alliance army would appear extremely insignificant. Everyone finally nodded after hearing these words. The two strongest in Diva, there would definitely be a big war once they reached the location of the two Shi ancient god mansion. This time around, even if we fight until many die, we must not allow the Hun clan to do what they please. Gu Yuan's expression was solemn as he spoke. Everyone nodded in unison. They understood that if they were to fail in this battle at the mansion, their fate would be the same as the other three clans. In order to retain their clan's bloodline, they must fight until death regardless of the great price they had to pay. The victor survives while the defeated dies. The army has remained at the Sky Mansion Alliance during this period of time and strictly observed the action of the Hun clan. Additionally, I feel that we should take the opportunity of this period of time to destroy the locations of all the Hall of Soul, which acts as the claws of the Hun clan, on the Central Plains. Xiao Yan opened his mouth and said after making a decision. The Hall of Soul, huh? It is perhaps time to completely destroy this tumor. Lei Ying and the others mused for a moment upon hearing this. A fierce glint flashed over their eyes. They were well aware of the actions of the Hall of Soul during these years. This faction had been collecting souls from all over the place. From the looks of it now, it seemed that the revival of the older generations of the Hun clan's experts like Han Yuanshan, who should have died a long time ago, had some relation with this. In that case, let's get this Alliance army to camp at the Sky Mansion Alliance. That place stands on the Central Plains and we will be able to monitor every action of the Hun clan. Gu Yuan did not object. Remaining in the Central Plains would make it convenient to monitor the Hun clan. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. After which, he turned his head towards Yao Lao and said, "Teacher, I'll leave the matter of the army to you. Ha ha, relax. The alliance might be lacking in many ways, but we have a lot of room. It should not be a problem for these people to stay there. Yao Lao fondled his beard and laughed. Additionally, the position of Chief of the Sky Mansion Alliance had been shifted to you before the army had set off. You are most suitable than me to take this position now. Xiao Yan was startled. He looked at the smile on Yao Lao's face and nodded helplessly. Currently, the alliance was becoming stronger. It did require a powerful alliance chief. Yao Lao might have the necessary reputation, but he was a little lacking in terms of strength. Allowing Xiao Yan to take the position would likely further stabilize the alliance. Xiao Yan once again left some instructions to Yao Lao and the rest before he suddenly turned his head to look at Kai Lin and Xun Er. He softly said, "The both of you should follow me." Xiao Yan rushed towards a distant mountain after his words sounded. Kai Lin and Xun Er also understood him after seeing this. Their faces became slightly flush. They clenched their hands tightly. Their hearts, which showed no fear in the face of a large army, actually began to feel slightly anxious. Both ladies quickly glanced at each other as though they were cheering each other on. After which, they clenched their silver teeth gently and followed. Xiao Yan's figure landed on a mountain in the distance. The few experts from the alliance on the mountain quickly stood up after they saw his arrival. They bowed and welcomed him. Respect and fear filled their faces. "Alliance Chief, I have troubled everyone." Xiao Yan waved his hand and quickly walked towards Xiao Zhan, who was guarded by everyone. He bowed respectfully and softly asked, "Father, are you all right?" Xiao Zhan looked at this somewhat skinny young man in front of him, whose hands seemed to possess the strength to fight the heavens. His eyes once again became moist. Pride and relief filled his heart. Although he was a great distance away earlier, he had also clearly seen the earth shaking like big battle earlier. The terrifying strength which Xiao Yan had displayed during the big battle had caused him to be excited and pleased. During these years he had spent in the Hun clan, he clearly understood just how frightening the Hun clan was. Yet, even such a terrifying opponent seemed to have suffered a serious damage in the hands of this youngest son of his. "Yan you have grown." Xiao Zhan's rough large hand patted Xiao Yan's shoulder. Back in the distant past, when everyone had thought that this former genius of the Xiao clan would become completely useless, only he stubbornly believed that the youth would one day soar to the skies. Decades later, the useless youth in the Wu-Tang city back then had already stood at the peak of this continent and overlooked everything on it. Xiao Yan involuntarily felt a heartache as he looked at Xiao Zhan's much older face. He forcefully smiled and slowly moved his body aside. Two beautiful figures, which caused everything in the world to pale in comparison, were revealed behind him. "Uncle Xiao, do you still remember Xun Er?" Xun Er's face were slightly flushed as she bowed gracefully and whispered. "Xun Er?" Xiao Zhan was startled. He looked at this beautiful fairy-like lady in front of him. Finally, he recalled the most brilliant and mysterious young lady of the Xiao clan back then. A joy immediately surged on his face. This was the most satisfactory daughter-in-law in his opinion about back then. However, the latter's status caused him to understand that it was merely wishful thinking on his part. He had even knocked Xiao Yan's head frequently because of this, telling him not to get too deep with Xun Er. Father, Xun Er is currently a member of our Xiao clan." Xiao Yan approached Xiao Zhan and laughingly said, "Good fellow, you have really not disappointed your father." Xiao Zhan's elderly face revealed a great joy after hearing this. His palm slapped onto Xiao Yan's back. Xun Er's face had turned red with embarrassment after hearing the conversation of the two. His face was brilliant and alluring. "Who is this?" Xiao Zhan was happy for a moment before his eyes suddenly looked at Kai Lin at the side. The latter was quietly standing in one corner with a bewitching and tempting appearance. However, her originally cold pretty face had become a lot quieter and gentler. It caused Xiao Yan to be a little stunned. "Cough. This is also your daughter-in-law, Kai Lin." Xiao Yan's expression was a little unnatural. He coughed dryly and spoke in a low voice. "Oh!" Xiao Zhan's face twitched slightly. He covertly gave Xiao Yan a thumbs up. "Father, you should also have heard of Kai Lin. She has another name called Queen Medusa." Xiao Yan laughed. "Queen Medusa?" Xiao Zhan's mind trembled slightly upon hearing this name which he had once known very well. Even though he had currently seen many experts, his heart still had a lingering horror towards this Queen Medusa, whose fierce reputation was well known throughout the entire Jia Ma Empire back then. After all, this was a name that no one had dared to even mention at the Jia Ma Empire back then. However, he did not expect that this Queen Medusa, who had frightened the entire Jia Ma Empire and a couple neighboring empires, would actually also become his daughter-in-law. Uncle Xiao, that is all in the past. You can call me Kai Lin. Kai Lin smiled sweetly. She immediately glared at Xiao Yan icily and quietly warned him not to talk about the matters in the past. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled in the face of Kai Lin's warning. After which, he looked at Xiao Zhan and smilingly said, "Father, let's return to the Sky Mansion Alliance first." "Oh, your granddaughter is also waiting for you there. At that time, I will also call big brother and second brother over. Our family will be able to reunite again." Granddaughter. Ji Yu Zhan widened his mouth. Various emotions immediately appeared in his heart. This little fellow, was he not a little too efficient? Continuing from the previous episode 683. Chapter 1612. Serenity. After the Alliance army withdrew back to the Sky Mansion Alliance, the entire Central Plains had undoubtedly turned into an uproar. The three great ancient clans and the overlord of the Central Plains, the Sky Mansion Alliance. This Alliance army was so powerful that one could not describe it with words. Any faction would be turned into dust under the might of this army. This shock, which caused everyone to panic, did not last for long before the news of the all-out war between the Alliance army and the Hun clan was spread. After all, the big battle between the Alliance army and the Hun clan at the Burial Mountain Range was really far too earth-shaking. It was impossible for that kind of big war not to attract attention. Hence, the moment the big battle ended and the Alliance army withdrew, news of the battle began to spread to every corner of the Central Plains. Some of the factions, which had some conflict with the Sky Mansion Alliance, quietly sighed in relief after hearing that the target of the Alliance army was the Hun clan. Soon after, however, they could sense the most terrifying storm in 1,000 years would soon sweep over the Central Plains with their sharp senses. This storm would be incomparable intense. It would be many times worse than any other war in the past. Many factions began to feel uneasy in the face of this imminent storm. A fight between the frightening existences would likely cause an extremely horrible destruction over the Central Plains. This was clearly a danger that could not be underestimated for the factions that were living on the Central Plains. Even if they were to be briefly touched by a war of this level, it was likely that their entire faction would be destroyed. Hence, those factions, which were located close the Sky Mansion Alliance, had all hurriedly left their lands after the Alliance army had set up camp at the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were afraid that they would suffer from some unintentional attacks when the war began, which would result in a miserable fate. Xiao Yan and the others ignored this commotion on the Central Plains. At the moment, the Hun clan might have committed various atrocities on the Central Plains, but it was obvious that those factions would not start a war with the Hun clan just because of this. Everyone wished to remain neutral in the face of this big war. Hence, Xiao Yan's group did not plan to pull these factions onto the same boat as them. The large army returned to the Star Realm and began to be busy once again. However, it was fortunate that there was Yao Lao and other people in charge of these. Hence, there was no need for Xiao Yan to have a headache over these matters. After all, he was really not very good when it came to management. Xiao Yan sighed in relief after returning to the Star Realm. Even he had felt a little tired after he finally being able to relax from such an intense battle. Therefore, while Yao Lao and the others were busy with settling the Alliance army down, he had led Xiao Zhan, Xuan and Kai Lin back to the mountain, which belonged to him. Xiao Xiao quickly appeared in front of Xiao Yan's group after hearing about news of Xiao Yan's return at the mountain. After which, she swiftly pounced into Xiao Yan's embrace and refused to come down. "Come, Xiao Xiao, greet your grandfather." The current Xiao Xiao had began to appear a little juicy. Adding the natural bewitching look she had inherited from her mother, she was already a beauty despite being young. One could imagine that she would become another great beauty, who could bring disaster to countries like her mother, when she grew up. Xiao Xiao's large black eyes blinked after hearing Xiao Yan's words. She looked at Xiao Zhan beside Xiao Yan. Although this old man appeared to be a stranger, she still obediently called out, "Grandpa." "Oh, good granddaughter." Xiao Zhan's eyes paused on Xiao Xiao the moment the latter appeared. His elderly face had actually reddened slightly from his excitement. That wrinkled-filled old face broke into a bright smile after hearing Xiao Xiao obediently greeted him. Even his eyes had become narrow as he laughingly replied in a hurried fashion. Xiao Yan helplessly smiled after seeing that Xiao Zhan's face was even more excited than when they had met earlier. Old people seemed to be especially fond of little children. After all, from the way they saw it, the continuation of their bloodline was the most important thing in a clan. Come, Grandpa will give you a hug. Xiao Zhan smilingly extended his hand and forcefully hugged Xiao Xiao from Xiao Yan's embrace. His beard-covered old face continued to touch Xiao Xiao's small face, causing the latter to reveal a bitter expression, beard, pain. Ha ha! Xiao Zhan involuntarily burst out in laughter upon seeing this. Tears even began to fall due to his laughter. During the decades which he had been imprisoned by the Han clan, he had basically fallen into a despair. After witnessing the strength of the Han clan, it was extremely difficult for him to imagine escaping from their hands. At times, he even hoped that Xiao Yan would not go and rescue him. This was because it was far too dangerous doing so. However, when reality was placed in front of him, Xiao Zhan became aware that even though he had always had a great confidence in Xiao Yan, he had still underestimated the ability of this son of his. This kind of family joy really the best thing in the world for Xiao Zhan, who had once ended up in despair. Xiao Yan clenched his fist tightly after seeing Xiao Zhan's appearance. Kai Lin and Xuan by the side involuntarily had reddened eyes. Father, let us go and rest first. Coincidentally, I am free during this period of time. I will help you nurse your health. Xiao Yan smiled, after which, he turned towards Kai Lin and said, Send someone back to the Jia Ma Empire and bring my brothers over. Tell them. Father is waiting for them. Kai Lin nodded gently before turning around and leave. Xiao Yan gently exhaled as he looked at Kai Lin's beautiful figure becoming distant. He muttered to himself in his heart, Big brother, second brother, I have finally did what I have promised the both of you. The days after the big battle was unusually peaceful. The Alliance army that camped at the Sky Mansion Alliance did not move frequently. However, this atmosphere was an imminent storm had not weakened as a result. Instead, it became even denser. Everyone was aware that this would be the decisive battle between two extraordinary parties. The earth-shaking big battle in the Burial Mountain Range had resulted in both parties suffering some losses. Hence, they were a little quiet during this period of time. Both parties were using this limited time to quickly recover their energy and prepare for an all-out strike. While the army was recuperating, the upper echelons of the Alliance army did not have the time to do so. Ji Yuan had found a place to undertake a retreat the moment the army had arrived at the Falling Star Pavilion. Everyone knew that he was personally monitoring the Han clan. With his monitoring the other party, any activity that occurred at the Han realm would be immediately discovered by him. However, such an activity did not appear during this period of time. It was as though the Han clan had become completely quiet after obtaining the ancient jade. Another couple of days passed in the blink of an eye as this deadlock continued. After the Alliance army had obtained some rest, they finally began their next course of action. This time around, their target was the Han clan. Strong individuals from all over the place were orderly divided into many groups that flew out from the Star Realm. After which, they began a carpet-like search from the Sky Mansion Alliance in an attempt to look for the branch hall of the Hall of Soul. In the face of this extremely detailed search, the branch halls of the Hall of Soul were all being exposed one after another. However, after the Alliance army charged into these branch hall, they discovered that it was completely empty inside. Only an extremely few branch halls still had some experts from the Hall of Soul guarding it. However, this kind of protection was unable to pose any obstruction towards the Alliance army. Under this extremely forceful search by the Alliance army, all the branch halls of the Hall of Soul on the Central Plains had been turned into wasteland. Even the most important sky and earth halls had been destroyed by the powerful Alliance army. From this moment forth, the Hall of Soul, which was once renowned throughout the Central Plains, was easily eliminated from it. The outsides could only be shocked in the face of the Hall of Soul being easily destroyed. The previous overlord of the Central Plains actually appeared so weak in the face of the Alliance oppression. However, Xiao Yan and the others had also frowned while the public was shocked. From the looks of it, it was obvious that the Han clan had already predicted this and have already withdrew the Hall of Soul from those places. Most importantly, the spiritual essence stored in those branch halls had also been shifted away by the Hall of Soul. The action taken by the Han clan could be considered decisive. They knew that it was basically impossible to protect the Ha of Soul in the face of the Alliance army. In that case, they might as well hand it over to the Alliance. In any case, the Hall of Soul could be said to have achieved its purpose. It did not matter even if it was destroyed. Once their plans succeed, they would be able to rapidly build a couple of Hall of Souls. At that time, the entire continent would be under their control. Following the destruction of the Hall of Soul, the Alliance army could only withdraw once again. After which, they were placed outside of the Hun realm in front of many pairs of eyes in preparation of any activities that could potentially appear. During this period of time, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li had also traveled through the wormhole that already been set up. They directly arrived at the Star Realm from the northwestern part of the continent. There was naturally a moving scene when father and son reunite. That scene caused the eyes of many to redden and their hearts to ache. Who could have expected that the original ordinary but lucky Xiao clan would ended up being separated due to the appearance of the Han clan from nowhere? After his two brothers' arrival, Xiao Yan had also enjoyed a period of joy from the reunion, which he had not felt for a long time. Additionally, he had also inquired about the matters of the Yan alliance. This alliance that he had established back then was currently the undeniable strongest faction on the current northwestern part of the continent. However, Xiao Yan did not have any plans to use the strength of the Yan alliance. From the perspective of the Central Plains, it could only be considered a relatively strong faction. Hence, it was pointless to robe it into the Alliance army. After enjoying a period of family time, Xiao Yan had once again refocused his mind. The matter of the Hall of Soul having gathered all the two Shi ancient god Jade had been weighing on him. Even though he had currently stepped into the D-State Soul, he was still far lacking when compared to a 9-star Do Sheng like the Nihility Devouring Flame. Hence, before the Han clan could find the two Shi ancient god cave, he must increase his strength as quickly as possible. In this way, it would allow him to be able to have some additionally trump cards when facing an opponent like the Nihility Devouring Flame. However, after reaching his level, attempting to raise his strength within a short period of time was clearly an extremely difficult task. Hence, Xiao Yan had finally chose to target the 9 mysterious golden lightning that was sealed within Little Yi's body after musing for a long time. After his soul had stepped into the D-State, he already possessed the ability to refine this strength, which he was once helpless against. Continuing from the previous episode 684. Chapter 1613. Lightning Tribulation Pill. Xiao Yan stood in front of a tomb that was standing alone on a plains deep within the heavenly tomb. He bowed respectfully towards the tomb before lifting his head. His eyes looked around him. There were many energy bodies present around the plains. However, they did not step anywhere within 10,000 feet from Xiao Yan. Moreover, there was respect and fear in their eyes as they looked at Xiao Yan. Even if one did not mention the fact that Xiao Yan was currently the owner of the heavenly tomb, just the fact that the latter's soul had stepped into the D-State was sufficient to cause these energy bodies to shudder in fear. These energy bodies could be considered the natives of this heavenly tomb. Most of these people were relatively powerful existences when they were alive. However, that was when they were still alive. At this moment, they were merely some energy bodies that could only survive by relying on the mysterious heavenly tomb. Xiao Yan had also deeply observed them. There was a total of over a dozen of them who had reached the Do Sheng class. Unfortunately, none of them possessed a strength comparable to ancestor Xiao Zhan. Xiao Yan smiled involuntarily in the face of this. If there was an energy body here that was comparable to ancestor Xiao Zhan, they would not have allowed the heavenly tomb soul to do as it pleased. This lineup could actually also be considered quite a powerful strength. However, due to the uniqueness of the heavenly tomb, they were unable to leave this place. Hence, they were of little help to Xiao Yan. Nevertheless, if I end up meeting an enemy in the future, I can trap him into entering the heavenly tomb. Xiao Yan fondled his chin and laughed softly. Immediately, he sat down in front of the tomb. His eyes were widened as he spoke in a faint voice, "Shui Dao, help me stand guard. Do not allow anyone to disturb me." Although there were many energy bodies inside the heavenly tomb, Xiao Yan did not really trust them. He could only be considered to be a little familiar to that Saint Shui Dao. Hence, Xiao Yan had the intention of allowing him to manage the order within the heavenly tomb. Understood. A blood-clothed figure in the distance hurriedly spoke in a respectful manner upon hearing this. If one was to look closely, it was that Saint Shui Dao. The current Shui Dao possessed quite a high status within this heavenly tomb. This was because many energy bodies were aware that the newly owner of the heavenly tomb seemed to have quite a deep relationship with him. Therefore, even some of the energy bodies which were far stronger than him, were currently extremely courteous to him. Saint Shui Dao was happy to enjoy such a change. However, he also understood that he was merely borrowing the strength of others to appear mighty. Therefore, he appeared extremely respectful when facing Xiao Yan. He completely treated himself as the latter's subordinate. Xiao Yan's hands formed a seal after he issued the instructions. Little Yi flashed and appeared on his shoulder. It opened its small mouth without waiting for Xiao Yan's instructions. A golden light was spat out from his mouth. Rumble. Loud rumbling sound appeared in the sky after this golden light had shot out. The golden light swelled with the wind. Within the short blink of an eye, however, it had swelled into a golden lightning dragon that was tens of thousands of feet in size. An enormous lightning arc flickered over his body. The rumbling sound brought about waves of thunder in the sky. Many energy bodies had a change in expression after seeing the golden lightning dragon emitting a terrifying pressure in the sky. They hurriedly pulled far back. If the lightning was to come smashing down, it was likely that many would have been blasted into dust. Roar! The lightning dragon roared in the sky. Those golden dragon eyes did not have any emotion. After all, it was currently only a type of pure energy. Xiao Yan looked at the lightning dragon raging in the sky and smiled slightly. He could clearly sense the violence and strength of the energy. If it was in the past, he might be only able to occasionally borrow its strength. However, it would have likely be extremely difficult task to refine it. However, it was fortunate that he had advanced into the D-state soul. This had allowed the 9 mysterious golden lightning, which he had originally feared, to become a lot more ordinary. The energy of the latter was increasingly powerful. This would allow Xiao Yan to quickly increase his strength. The most important thing for his current self was to possess a greater strength. I wish to said just how tyrannical you can be. The seal formed by Xiao Yan's hand changed once again. The ocean-like unfathomable spiritual strength on his brow swept out like a storm. In an instant, a huge figure that was a couple of times larger than the lightning dragon, stood in the sky. The huge shadow was exactly the same as Xiao Yan. However, the rolling pressure that spread from its body was many times stronger than the pressure of the lightning dragon. Just looking at the enormous figure caused a trembling feeling to surge from deep within his soul. That feeling was as though they had met the Emperor of all souls. Only by submitting would they be able to escape from the harm of that pressure. Roar! Under that incomparably huge figure, even the golden lightning dragon, which was void of any intelligence, seemed to have felt the pressure. Its low roar was no longer as wild and violent as earlier. Even the bright lightning glow on his body had suddenly become much dimmer. The huge figure looked down at the lightning dragon from high above. Suddenly, a mountain-like large hand was extended out from the cloud layer and grabbed onto the lightning dragon. Bang bang bang! The scales on the golden lightning dragon stood up after they sassed the huge claw striking at them. Its large mouth was widened. Many thousand feet large golden lightning balls were shot out. Finally, they ruthlessly collided onto the giant hand, emitting a deafening rumbling sound. Golden lightning arcs flashed crazily in the sky. It appeared just like a golden lightning cloud. However, the lightning cloud directly torn apart the moment it was formed. A pair of large hands containing a terrifying pressure directly grabbed onto the lightning dragon's body. Chi! The lightning dragon struggled wildly after its body was caught. Many golden lightning continued to strike onto the huge palm, emitting a series of crackling sound. However, the huge palm did not move. Humph! Break it! The huge figure watched the crazily struggling lightning dragon. A sharp cry was suddenly emitted. Immediately, the strength of his palm soared. One could hear a rumbling explosion in the sky, and the golden lightning dragon was shattered by it. The lightning dragon exploded, and it immediately turned into a viscous golden liquid, which was suspended in the sky. Those golden liquid contained an incomparably mighty energy fluctuation. Who? After the appearance of the golden liquid, little Yi suddenly leaped up from Xiao Yan's shoulder. His body swayed and it turned into a 10,000 feet large fire cauldron. The cauldron was opened and a suction force erupted from it. Immediately, the sea of golden liquid became like numerous golden river pouring down from the sky and completely fell into the fire cauldron. After the final drop of golden liquid fell into the fire cauldron, A pink flame within it immediately whistled and rose as it crazily attempted to refine it. At the same time, Xiao Yan, who was below, beckoned with his hand. Countless medicinal ingredients flew out from within his storage ring. Finally, they turned into a medicinal sea that floated in the sky. Xiao Yan did not use an ordinary method to swallow the 9 mysterious golden lightning during this refinement. This was because he understood that with his current strength, even if he was to simply directly refine it, he would at the very most only be able to reach the advanced level 6-star Do Sheng class. However, Xiao Yan was dissatisfied with this. Hence, he had used another method. It was to use the 9 mysterious golden lightning as the key ingredient to refine a pill. This pill was called the Lightning Calamity Pill. It could be considered a relatively mysterious medicinal pill. Its main ingredient was not something ordinary. Instead, it was the pill lightning. Refining a medicinal pill with pill lightning and adding many medicinal ingredients and monster core into the mix. The pill that was refined would definitely be extraordinary. The Lightning Calamity Pill was also divided into different grades. There were Tier 8 medicinal pills, Tier 9 treasure pills and Tier 9 mysterious pills. The quality of the Lightning Calamity Pill that was being refined is mainly determined by the difference in the main ingredient. If one was to follow Xiao Ysm and directly use the 9 mysterious golden lightning as the main ingredient, the Lightning Calamity Pill that was finally refined should be able to reach the Tier 9 mysterious pill level. Xiao Yan had only succeeded in refining the Tier 9 mysterious pill once before. He had also been quite lucky back then. This time around, however, Xiao Yan was extremely confident. The main reason for this confidence was simply because his soul had stepped into the D state. After having reached this level, one would seldom make any mistake when refining pills. Any changes would be detected early and corrected under the observation of the D state soul. Hence, Xiao Yan was not really worried that he would destroy this only 9 mysterious golden lightning of his. His D-state soul gave him sufficient confidence. The sea of medicine around the fire cauldron in the sky continued to pour into the latter. These medicinal ingredients had directly turned into the purest medicinal strength the moment they entered the fire cauldron. Finally, they merged into the golden liquid. With an increasing number of medicinal ingredients being poured into the golden liquid, the liquid had also become a little colorful. The surface of the liquid had a continuous flashing lightning on it. At a glance, it appeared extremely mysterious. Refining a Tier 9 mysterious pill was not something that could be done immediately. However, Xiao Yan was already prepared for this. It was precisely because of this reason that he had chose the Heavenly Tomb as the location for the refinement. With the difference in the flow of time of this place, he should be able to successfully refine the Lightning Calamity Pill within 1 to 2 months. Hence, lightning roar continuously resounded within the Heavenly Tomb during the subsequent period of time. The huge fire cauldron floated in the distant sky. Those pink flame that spread apart caused many energy bodies to sense a heartfelt horror. This scene continued for almost a month. However, only 6 days had passed on the Central Plains. After this refinement lasted for a month, Xiao Yan, whose eyes were tightly shut, also slowly opened them. His eyes looked at the fire cauldron in the sky and smiled. Golden light spread within the fire cauldron. The golden liquid had already withered away. However, that fist-sized bright gold-like medicinal pill originally located at the middle of the golden liquid, was quietly floating in the cauldron. Many golden lightning continued to seep out from around the medicinal pill while emitting a rumbling sound. The Tier 9 mysterious pill, Lightning Calamity Pill, had been successfully refined. Continuing from the previous episode 685. Chapter 1614. 7-star Do Sheng. Xiao Yan's expression was pleased as he looked at the fire cauldron and stood up. The pill refinement this time around had once again allowed him to feel the great strength of his D-state soul. If this had been in the past, he would have to exhaust himself greatly in order to refine this Lightning Calamity Pill. Moreover, the most important thing was that there was no guarantee of his success after this exhaustion. Bang! The fire cauldron in the sky above began to churn intensely after Xiao Yan stood up. It vaguely gathered into a lightning cloud. Traces of black thunderbolt appeared just like huge dragons as they shuttled through the churning cloud in the sky. Pill lightning, huh? Xiao Yan smiled upon seeing this scene. He did not appear concerned. All he did was to wave his hand and the Northern King rushed out from within his storage ring. It directly turned into a black shadow that charged into the lightning cloud. Immediately, the lightning rumbled in the sky. It was possible to vaguely see the many thunderbolts in the sky rushing crazily towards a human figure. This kind of lightning roar continued for around 10 minutes or so before it gradually disappeared. Finally, many pure lightning strength came pouring down from the lightning clouds and landed into the brilliant golden medicinal pill in the fire cauldron. Buzz buzz. After these lightning strength surged into the pill, the final trace of impurity within the medicinal pill had also been purified. Immediately, a bright golden light erupted from within the medicinal cauldron. The cauldron cover was also forcefully pushed open. That lightning calamity pill within it turned into a light ray that charged towards the sky at a shocking speed. I have spent so much time and hard work to refine you. How can I simply allow you to escape? Xiao Yan laughed. A thought passed through his mind, and the huge spiritual figure standing in the sky extended its giant hand. It directly penetrated through the empty space and grabbed onto the escaping golden light. Immediately, his body shrunk and swiftly rushed into Xiao Yan's brow. The brilliant gold medicinal pill was also obediently suspending in front of him. Who? Xiao Yan involuntarily sighed in relief as he looked at the round golden light medicinal pill in front of him. He could sense the terrifying strength within the medicinal pill. The quality of this lightning calamity pill was clearly greater than the Tier 9 mysterious pill that Xiao Yan had refined back at the Yao clan. Of course, this was unsurprising. After all, regardless of whether it was in terms of ingredients or his own ability, all of them had far surpassed those from back then. How much strength I can gain this time around will depend on you. Xiao Yan looked at the golden light medicinal pill in front of him and smiled. Immediately, he covered his eyes with his hands. The lightning calamity pill had turned into a ray of golden light that rushed into his opened mouth. Bang! The lightning calamity pill had only just entered Xiao Yan's body when an incomparably wild and violent ripple spread from within it. Immediately, sandy wind blew over the plains. A huge pit, that was hundreds of feet deep and tens of thousands of feet wide, appeared on the plains. Xiao Yan was standing at the middle of that deep pit. The tomb behind Xiao Yan continued to stand under the support of a huge stone pillar. Some faint light was being emitted from the tomb, protecting it from being destroyed. Chi! Bright golden lightning glow continued to surge out from within Xiao Yan's body. Finally, it spread over its surface and turned into a low and deep thunder roar. Xiao Yan's hair was in a mess while he was being encompassed by the glittering golden lightning. His originally black hair had immediately appeared as though it had been made of gold. While the surface of his body was undergoing a change, Xiao Yan was also crazily roaring within his body. The wild and violent lightning strength had turned into many furious dragons that went on a crazy rampage within their bodies. Regardless of how they charge around, however, it seemed that it would meet an extremely hard and invisible barrier, which reflected all of them back. At the same time, the purifying demonic lotus flame had also whistled and spread within Xiao Yan's body. It directly used the most peremptory method to devour all of these wild and violent energy. After it was refined, it turned into a rolling pure do qi that merged into Xiao Yan's body. With the help of his D-state soul and the strength of the purifying demonic lotus flame, it would be quite an easy matter to refine the lightning calamity pill. The enormous deep pit had a golden light flickering within it. Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes had a solemn expression in them. The natural energy gradually formed some ripples. Finally, it gathered on this plains. At a glance, it seemed as though there was a world tide-like mysterious scene. Using one's own do qi to cause a world tide. There were hardly anyone in this world with the strength to do this. Ji Yuan had also drew a world tide back then. However, its might was clearly many times greater than this world tide Xiao Yan had stirred. After all, there was still a big gap between Xiao Yan and his strength. However, this scene was already quite incredible. If it was an ordinary 7-star elite Do Sheng, it was likely extremely difficult to perform something like this. The reason Xiao Yan was able to do it was partly because of his D-state soul. The many energy bodies on the surrounding plains involuntarily had a change in expression after seeing the small-scale energy tide in the sky. This person can really be considered a genius. When I met him for the first time back then, he merely had the strength of a Do Zun. However, the next time I meet him, he had already advanced into the Do Sheng class. This speed can be considered terrifying. Now, he had advanced to an even higher level. In the future, he might really be able to reach the peak level like Xiao Zan. Saint Shui Dao muttered to himself. A vague respect was revealed in his eyes. This achievement of Xiao Yan really caused one to have no other choice but to admire him. The surging energy tide had lasted for 10 full days. Only then did it gradually weaken. After another 2 days, the energy tide had finally completely disappeared. Kai, a golden light suddenly charged upwards from the enormous deep pit when the energy tide scattered. Looking from a distance, it appeared as though it had penetrated through the world, giving it an extremely spectacular appearance. The golden light shot towards the sky while a figure slowly rose into the air. After which, the figure stepped on the empty space and gently landed on the ground. After his footstep landed, the light pillar also quickly dimmed and vanished from this world. Xiao Yan lifted his head and looked at the energy tide in the sky, which had completely vanished. His hair had once again returned to its normal state. However, those dark black eyes occasionally had some golden color flashing within them. It seemed to possess a strange pressure when one looked at it. 7-star Do Sheng. Xiao Yan sensed the condition within his body. A joy quickly surged onto his face. The effect of the lightning calamity pill did not disappoint him. He was finally able to break through to the 6-star Do Sheng class and leap into the 7-star Do Sheng class. This level was already comparable to the older generation experts like the 4 demon saints of the Hun clan and the 3 immortals of the Jiyu clans. Of course, if they were to really fight, Xiao Yan was naturally able to easily defeat them. After all, his D-state soul was not a decoration. It is indeed worthy of being the Tier 9 mysterious pill, lightning calamity pill. Xiao Yan stretched his waist in satisfaction. If he was to use an ordinary method to refine the 9 mysterious golden lightning, it was likely that he would at the very most be able to reach the advanced 6-star Do Shen class. There would likely be quite a great difficulty for him to break through to the 7-star. After all, that small step hid a great difficulty. It is time to leave. However, Yao Lao has yet to send any information. It is likely that the Hun clan is still quiet. These people, what are they waiting for? Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes. There was a chill flashing across time. After counting the time, he found that at least 10 days had passed. They should have already completed their recuperation. The Hun clan should be extremely anxious when it come to the 2 Shi ancient god mansion. Their current action appeared to be somewhat strange. Of course, Xiao Yan did not think that the Han clan had already headed directly to the 2 Shi ancient god mansion and open it without anyone knowing. With Jiyu Yuan personally monitoring them, Xiao Yan believed that there would be no one in this world who could escape from his monitoring without anyone learning about it. Han Tiandi, I wish to see just what you are planning. Xiao Yan laughed coldly. He immediately waved his sleeve gently and a crack appeared in the space in front of him. He took a stride forward, entered the crack and disappeared. The many energy bodies sighed in relief after seeing Xiao Yan disappear. Finally, they slowly scattered. This was a completely dark and quiet space. Black fog spread over the sky. A dark and cold force seeped across every part of this place. There was a black hall standing in the sky deep within this place. A figure was seated in the air while dark black flames continued to seep out from his body. Looking from a distance, he appeared just like a black hole that was continuously devouring everything in the world. There were many densely packed black figures below. At this moment, one after another light clusters had flew out from within the storage rings of these black figures. The light clusters were transparent. However, there was a pure energy that could cause one's expression to change contained within them. If Xiao Yan was present, he would be able to recognize that these light clusters were surprisingly the spiritual essence that the Hall of Soul had collected. Back then, Xiao Yan had merely refined a cluster of it and his spiritual strength had actually reached the perfect heavenly state. However, there were at least over 100 light clusters present. Whoo! The interior of the black figure seated in the sky suddenly emitted a wild wind-like sound. Immediately black flames surged out in all directions. A suction force erupted and it actually sucked the many spiritual essence light cluster into it. These spiritual essence were directly devoured after making contact with the black flame. With more and more spiritual essence being forcefully devoured by the figure, a wave of terrifying spiritual fluctuation was also gradually being emitted from within the body of the black figure. Roar! This fluctuation became increasingly strong. At the end, it became almost real, causing the space itself to become distorted. A low and deep roar was emitted from the mouth of the black figure. Suddenly, the black figure stood up. Monstrous spiritual fluctuation immediately erupted in all directions like a volcano. Congratulations on Nihility Sir's advancement into the D-state soul. The densely packed black figures below immediately bowed after sensing the monstrous spiritual pressure. Their respectful voice resounded within this place, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Ha! The black figure in the sky involuntarily laughed towards the sky. His eyes quickly turned towards a figure on the mountain below and laughed. Han Tiandi. It is time to gather the 8 jades and find out where the 2 She ancient god cave is located. Continuing from the previous episode 686. Chapter 1615. Probing the ancient god mansion. A figure stood with his hands behind his back on the mountain. He lifted his head to look at the nihility devouring flame in the sky and smiled faintly. His white clothes caused him to stand out in this seemingly dark and sinister monotonous space. However, no one dared to question this uniqueness. Everyone's eyes were filled with excitement and respect when looking at him. This person was clearly the clan head of the Han clan, Han Tiandi. Han Tiandi took a stride forward and appeared in front of the nihility devouring flame in the sky. He carefully observed the latter before laughing. Not bad. We have finally allowed you to reach the D-state soul after spending such a great amount of effort. Haha, the nihility devouring flame also involuntarily laughed out loud. An existence like him would usually have an extremely difficult time training his soul to the D-state. Fortunately, the Hall of Soul had refined many spiritual essence during this years. By using this incomparably large essence strength, his soul was forcefully being pushed up. However, the price of this increase was really expensive. Most of the spiritual essence that the Hall of Soul had obtained through many years of hard work had basically been completely devoured by him. However, the position of the nihility devouring flame in the Han clan was extremely great. No one would say anything against his enjoyment of such a treatment. There will only be reward if there is effort. Currently, with my strength, it should be possible for me to block Gu Yuan for a moment. If the both of us join hands, it would not be difficult for us to defeat him. The nihility devouring flame said. Han Tiandi laughed and nodded. His eyes were a little excited as he softly said, "It seemed that it is time to probe the location of the 2 She ancient god mansion. As long as we open the mansion and obtain the embryonic D pill, you will be able to borrow its strength to break into that level no one had reached in 10,000 years and truly become the strongest existence in this world." The nihility devouring flame licked his lips. Immediately, he changed the topic of the conversation and laughed. "However, you should also not forget that there is also something that I need within the mansion. This was our agreement back then. You can be rest assured. You and the Han clan are closely related and we will definitely not lie to you. If it is really as you have said and the mansion has something that you need, I will help obtain it for you." Han Tiandi laughed. The nihility devouring flame nodded with satisfaction after hearing this. The Han clan had been able to continue existing until now because of him. Naturally, he had his own condition for giving so much help to the Han clan. Otherwise, even with the strength of Han Tiandi, it would be impossible for the latter to force him to do anything for the Han clan. Humph! 2 She ancient god. The cold smile that was lifted on the nihility devouring flame's face was scattered. His eyes were turned towards Han Tiandi. At this moment, the latter waved his sleeve. 8 ancient jades slowly flew out from his sleeve. The ancient jades floated above Han Tiandi's head, emitting a faint luster as it did so. They began to beckon each other, creating a brilliant scene in the process. There seemed to be a strange fluctuation vaguely emitted in the process. Han Tiandi's eyes were fiery hot as they glanced at the 8 jades. Suddenly, he bit the tip of his tongue. A mouthful of essence blood was spat out and it immediately landed on the 8 jade. Buzz buzz. The 8 jades, which were originally only emitting a faint luster, suddenly emitted a faint buzzing sound after they came into contact with the essence blood. The light also became increasingly powerful and the surface of the ancient jade vaguely had some strange lines flowing over it. The 2 She ancient god jade had been scattered for so many years. Now, I shall help put you back together. Han Tiandi laughed out loud as he watched the unnatural phenomenon in the sky. His hand was clenched violently towards the ancient jade. Kai! After Han Tiandi clenched his hand, the 8 ancient jades began to directly merge together. However, it did not shatter. Instead, it vaguely showed signs of being connected together as the light rays crossed each other. Buzz buzz. The ancient jade became increasingly close to each other and the buzzing sound also became even more intense. One could hear a couple of cracks sound, and 8 pieces of ancient jades were actually directly placed together. Immediately, a light was emitted and a complete ancient jade, which was even larger than his hand, had appeared in the sky. After the 2 ancient god jade was completely placed together, an ancient and desolated aura was slowly spread from within the ancient jade. There was a faint light fog rising from within the ancient jade while the ancient aura spread. Immediately, it turned into a somewhat illusory old figure above the ancient jade. The old man was wearing black robes. His hair was made up of a couple of different colors. Each of the colors seemed as though there was a flame rising from it, giving him an extremely mysterious appearance. His face appeared extremely ordinary. However, those deep space-like eyes seemed to be like the overlord of the world. Under the watch of those eyes, everyone, even an expert like Han Tiandi, felt their soul quiver slightly. 2 ancient god. The only one in this world who could cause Han Tiandi to feel such an emotion was the legendary elite Do Di. This old man was likely the last legendary Do Di on the continent, the 2 ancient god. Other than only a handful of experts within the Han clan could resist the tremor and lift their heads, the others mostly had their heads firmly lowered. That feeling was as though they would be directly pressed by a pressure until they explode should they lift their heads even a little. Everyone's heart were filled with horror in the face of this pressure that was far greater than even Han Tiandi. Humph, putting up an act. You are merely just an illusory figure, yet you must try to act mysterious. Han Tiandi's expression was a little gloomy. Clearly, he felt a little furious at this emotion, which he had not felt for many years. His eyes were icy cold as he looked at the illusory figure. Suddenly, his hand grabbed towards the ladder. Bang! Han Tiandi's sharp palm wind struck heavily onto that illusory figure. However, his expression suddenly changed when the attack made contact. Soon after, an extremely terrifying strength was abruptly reflected and poured onto his body, sending it flying by thousands of feet. Be careful. Although it is only an illusory figure, it is after all something left behind by the 2 ancient god. The Nihility devouring flame spoke in a deep voice. His eyes were also staring at the figure in a dark and cold manner. He involuntarily clenched his teeth and his eyes became a little complicated. Han Tiandi's expression was a little dark and solemn as he turned around. He was in a bad mood after he had suffered a loss in front of so many clan members. With a frown, he asked, "How can we destroy this illusory figure? Why are you so anxious?" The Nihility devouring flame rolled his eyes and said, "The location of the 2 ancient god mansion is hidden within the eyes of the illusory figure." Oh! Han Tiandi was astonished at hearing this. He focused his mind and looked into the eyes of that illusory figure. A moment later, his expression gradually became grave. It seemed that he was indeed able to see some images, but it was not clear. Damn 2 ancient god. He actually still had such a technique. Even if an ordinary person managed to gather all 8 jades, it would be difficult to learn of the location of the mansion if he was unaware of its secret. Han Tiandi exclaimed. Even with his strength, he still involuntarily let out a praise in the face of this technique. Nihility, it seems that I have to trouble you. The Nihility devouring flame smiled and nodded. Both of his eyes were suddenly dyed into a pure black color. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes and entered the eyes of the illusory figure. Light reflected in an imagine, which was magnified by many times, appeared in the space where the black light was reflected. This is. Han Tiandi narrowed his eyes and looked at the figure in the sky. It was an extremely spacious and foreign region. At a glance, one could tell that this region was not located in the Central Plains. The imagine swept past the mountains near the foreign terrain. After which, it was suddenly shifted downwards and directly entered deep underground. A sea of flame spread over the place as an endless sea of magma appeared. Where is this place? Han Tiandi frowned tightly. From this scene, this sea of magma should be located underground. However, it was still impossible to find its exact location with just this alone. The imagine continued to venture deep into the sea of magma. With the increase in its depth, a kind of mysterious creature suddenly appeared in it. It was a kind of lizard-like creature. There was a fierceness within the creature's eyes. After this kind of lizard-like creature appeared, an ancient stone door began to appear deep within the magma world. The top of the stone door had 3 words. Do Di Mansion. Crack. The scene came to a sudden halt the moment Han Tiandi's eyes paused on those 3 blurry ancient words. He also slowly exhaled. The excitement in his heart had also increased. What do you think? I am unfamiliar with that place. It is likely that I have never been there. The nihility devouring flame looked at Han Tiandi and asked. I am also unfamiliar with it. Han Tiandi frowned. The Do-Chi continent was quite a large place. Although this scene had shown a relatively vast region, it would not be easy to lock onto the exact location within a short moment. He mused for a moment before waving his hand. The 4 demon saints rushed over in a flash. Han Tiandi merely glanced at them and spoke in an indifferent voice. Remember the terrain that you have seen, including the unique aspects of the mountain range, etc. After which, pass them to the clan members still outside. Ask them to use all of their strength to search every possible place. They must confirm the terrain. Tell them not to return if they fail. The 4 demon saints hurriedly replied respectfully and began to issue instructions. I can sense that Gu Yuan is monitoring us. If we send out a large group of experts, it will definitely catch his attention. The nihility devouring flame remarked. It's fine. We'll confirm the location first. I will have my own methods when the time comes. Han Tiandi nodded. He placed his hands behind his back and his eyes looked towards the flashing ancient jade in the sky. He muttered to himself. After spending such a great amount of effort in order to gather all of you, I do not believe that I am unable to find the location of the cave.